What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another game day update. I'm Kelcey, and I am joined for the first time ever, and I'm so excited to have him on. Pat Boylan is the Pacers radio host and sideline reporter. Thank you for being here today. Let's talk some basketball.
Yeah, let's do it. Appreciate you having me.
All right. I think we discussed that we need to start with the injury report because both are kind of long for this game, and I think ours is longer. We've got 10 guys out. Obviously, if you're watching this, you know that Dillon Brooks is out, Chris Dunn is still out, and Sean McDermott is still out. They're all dealing with different injuries. And then we've got 7 guys resting, and it is, 7 guys that have been getting a lot of minutes. Steven Adams, Kyle Anderson, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr. I took a big breath because this list is so long. Tyus Jones, DeAnthony Melton, and John Morant will all be resting today. And then I told you that, and you were like, oh no, like a bunch of our guys are resting too. So let's just get this all out of the way.
Yeah, and unfortunately the Pacers, I wish more of these guys were rest, but this is preseason game number 3 for the Pacers. I think it's 5 for the Grizzlies. So the Pacers they only have a 4-game preseason schedule. So I'm sure there's a little bit of a difference how the two organizations are handling things like rest in the preseason. And unfortunately for the Pacers, injuries have just been the storyline that they can't shake really over the last 3 seasons or so, dating back to when Victor Oladipo went down with that injury. And while the coaching staff has changed and there's a lot of hope for what Rick Carlisle can bring, unfortunately, the injury troubles haven't cleared themselves totally up yet. So TJ Warren is going to be out, I think, still for a significant period of time. He missed almost all of last year. Karis LeVert, they found something right at the beginning of training camp in his back that they wanted to hold him out for. All of a sudden, Malcolm Brogdon went down, and we don't know with a whole lot of details on his injury. He went down in practice on Monday. And the hope there is that short term. And then Justin Holiday as well, who's kind of your 7th or 8th guy off the bench, and he's been starting with a lot of these guys injured. He rolled his ankle in Friday night's game, which is the last time the Pacers have played. So unfortunately, not so much in the rest category, just a lot of guys with some injuries. The hope is that besides Warren, the rest of those are short term, but certainly we'll keep them out tonight against Memphis.
All right. So 2 different stories, but it does come down to the same result. And that is tonight, some second squad bench guys could get a lot of minutes they're going to have to for us. They could get a lot of minutes for you guys. So when you look at your roster now, I know in one of the games you played Cleveland and then you played the Knicks. One of these games, the rookie in Chris Duarte came out and he had himself a monster night. What do you like about him?
He's a fascinating player because he's 24 years old. He's the oldest draft pick since 2002. And I think that kind of allowed him to slide down some boards because I think, some general managers, some presidents looked at that and said, well, where is his ceiling if he's here at 24? And, NBA teams like to take those guys, especially earlier in the draft with high ceilings. The Pacers were thrilled to get him. But he's a fascinating guy because I compare him to Miles Turner, not necessarily from a positional perspective, but Miles Turner 7th year in the NBA. Chris Duarte is a rookie. Duarte's 24. Miles is 25. So there's only a year separating those two guys. And Miles Turner is a NBA veteran, and Chris Duarte is a rookie. Rookie isn't really, this is his first NBA minutes that he's seen, but he's not your typical rookie. He's not that 19-year-old who played 1 year at Kentucky or a big school and then jumped on. And he's looked really comfortable, really smooth. And I think that's what you want to see from a guy who's a little bit older, somebody who, the spotlight doesn't really shine too bright for him. So I think there's a certain significant hope that he can play significant minutes, be a part of the rotation. The Pacers lost Doug McDermott in free agency, and I think they're really hoping that Chris Duarte can step into that role and maybe play a little bit of a bigger role than a typical rookie would in that draft range spot because of his age and because of his experience.
And now on the complete flip, our rookie in Zaire Williams, he's coming in and he's one of the youngest guys to come on the team. He's going to have a chance tonight to get some major minutes as well. He hasn't quite had, and I know this is preseason, we're 4 games in, you guys are only 2, but he hasn't had that breakout game that we saw Chris have earlier this preseason with you guys. So I think that's going to be a really interesting thing for him. Some other guys that we're going to see a lot of minutes tonight are Brandon Clark and Xavier Tillman. So two of like the big guys, the 4-5s, are going to have some an opportunity to put in some work. When you look at all the injuries that are kind of plaguing the Pacers right now, if you were to put some money out, not that you can, but you're going to have, your three main guys tonight, who should Grizzlies fans be watching on Indiana?
Yeah, well, I will double down on the fact that I cannot put money on. This is a hypothetical cash dollar figure. I think Chris Duarte, you already named him. I think he's somebody that the Pacers are looking to get. Similar to most rookies in the preseason, you're looking to get these guys a lot of minutes. You don't have a ton of time to get them NBA minutes when they don't count. So he's one of them. Isaiah Jackson. So the Pacers actually traded back into the first round, and in the early 20s took a center out of Kentucky. And he's kind of your typical, he's 19, he's really young, a prospect kind of guy. We don't really know what he's going to be, other than he's shown a lot of nice flashes so far. So I think those two rookies, they probably really stand out the most of this group. And then this is the third coaching staff these guys have had in the last 3 years. Nate McMillan, on to Nate Bjorkgren, on to Rick Carlisle. So of the regulars that are left, Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis, both expected to play tonight. I guess if you only pick one, maybe I'm looking at Domantas, just because these guys have had to play three slightly different systems in the last 3 years. And I think it's all about adjusting to what Rick Carlisle wants to do and how he sees those two guys on the floor together, because they're too talented not to play at the same time at times. But it's not the typical fit you see in the NBA, playing a couple of centers. So I think Sabonis or Turner, pick one of those two to fill out the three, and how they fit into what Rick Carlisle is looking to do.
All right, and here's going to be my very last question for you. And this is because I always bring up the fact that I love Canadians. What are we feeling about O'Shea Brissett? We're going to see some Brissy tonight?
I think we will. And he really was just an unbelievable story last year. A season that, from a Pacers perspective, was overall pretty frustrating. Just an unbelievable amount of injuries. They never really reached their ceiling. But O'Shea Brissett came in, had a great G League restart, and then was given a role just because of so many injuries. And then not only did he perform, but with more injuries, you had O'Shea starting, you had him playing major minutes, and he had numerous huge games for Indiana that really came out of nowhere. This is a guy that wasn't on the roster to start the season, wasn't on an NBA roster to start the season, and he had played some games with Toronto the previous year, but he came out of nowhere. So he was such a storybook type of season last year, and I'm really interested in seeing that up. Was that 20 games where he caught some fire, caught some rhythm, and was really pumped up to show what he could? Now, can he show that over the course of an NBA season, an entire year? But I know he really impressed the front office, really impressed last year's coaching staff with what he was able to do. So especially with these injuries, I think you're going to see a ton of O'Shea Brissett tonight. And he becomes a really interesting storyline, because I think if he is able to pick up where he left off, then he's got a definite spot in the rotation. But it's a pretty competitive rotation. And of course, the injuries will dictate a lot of that. But I think he's one of the more interesting guys on the Pacers roster just in general headed into this season.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about preseason. This is what preseason is for. We've been preaching this, since training camp. This is the time where, if you're given the opportunity, you make the most of it. You can kind of force a coach's hand to be like, no, look what I did in the preseason. Let's see if we can keep that rolling in the regular season. And I think tonight is going to be one of those games for both teams. So you can get the game it's 6 o'clock our time. I was messaging Pat earlier, and I was like, hey, let's do it at 12:30. And then I realized you guys are actually an hour ahead. So 6 o'clock our time if you're watching from Memphis, 7 o'clock if you are watching from Indiana. If you're in Memphis, you can catch it on Valley Sports Southeast. And we will tag Pat. Go follow him. I'm sure he's going to have all the good content that you want, because he's there at the arena. Are you?
I will be, and not that I'm counting, but it'll be the first time in 583 days that I'm going to get to cover a basketball game within like 100 yards. I know everybody's doing this, so I'm not alone in this, but I'm so excited because tonight is our first home game of the preseason. And obviously last year we covered everything from a distance or off monitors, and the restart was what the restart was. So for the first time since everything shut down, I'm so looking forward to getting back in that courtside seat and getting to be back around the action. It was so sorely missed.
What's the number? 500 and
583, I believe, if I did my math correct.
583 days. Well, I hope you have a really, really, really great time tonight. Soak it all in. And I mean, I'd say go Pacers, but
You're wearing a Grizzlies shirt. No one's going to believe you.
Thanks, Pat.
Hey, I appreciate the time.